We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Blake, I am quite excited for today's show. It is a game pick episode, and if I did my math correctly this past week, somebody's tied, came back from the dead, came back from the huge deficit that he was in, and now the standings are tied, Blake. Wait, that's me. That's me. I was 9-1 last week.
I blame Josh Pate.
Why?
Send it to him. Because he convinced me to pick.
That's on you. That's on you. That's on you.
So if I lose our game pick'ems by one, I'm gonna make Pate pay you, which
what?
That's only
no, fair. Boo. Come on. Own up to it.
We are currently tied. You know what, man? We've had a really good run of game picks. We've been pretty hot here as of late, who we are picking, both of us being 34-16. But I got to say this, Joe. We have not been live in the month of October. Do you know what today officially makes it?
I'm not saying it out loud anymore.
It's Cocktober. You were a fan of the Cocks. You were a fan of Cocktober.
Yeah, I was a big Cock guy, man, and that fan base doesn't like me, so I'm not going to give them any love. That's plain and simple. They don't like me. No longer a big Cock guy.
All right, come on. Come on. You get on to me all the time. Look at you. I will say this. October is the best month of sports. End of discussion. Yeah. Because did you see the Detroit Astros game today?
I did. I caught the end of it. When I was working earlier.
How about Detroit?
Yeah.
Good thing about that city in and of itself, they got the Lions going off right now. They got the Tigers going off right now. And who cares about the Chicago Bears? By the way, told you that Caleb Williams was a bust. But now
dude, 4 games in. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that. We're not doing that on this show.
Man that paints his fingernails.
4 games. All right, do the lead-in. We're not debating.
There's a UFC fighter named Israel Adesanya. As soon as he started painting his nails, he started getting his ass whooped. It's a correlation. Men that paint their nails get their ass whooped.
We'll save the draft stuff for February.
So we'll go through our power rankings. No, not ratings. Power rankings are 1 through 10. Joe, I'm very fully prepared to get yelled at by you today on one of my picks. But I have a reasoning as to why. We'll also give you our week 6 picks. Again, like we said, Joe and I are 34-16. And by the way, welcome to the episode or Ruffino and Joe show Vanderbilt. This is going to be the first time that we talk about Vanderbilt in a game preview of theirs on this show, Alabama and Vandy this weekend.
I can't help but think back to that quote from like 10 years ago. No-name Vanderbilt player. They were like 4-0 to start the season or something. And he was like, "We want Bama. We're going to beat Bama." And he said it kind of like that with like a high-pitched voice. And then they got worked the following week. I don't know why it made me think of that because Vanderbilt has a pulse this year. But they're not going to do anything against Alabama. This is more of a conversation because his Bama squad needs to use this upcoming game as a momentum builder, and they can't come out lackluster and asleep. This is a big game for them. I don't want to hear anybody saying it's just a simple walkover. Any game in the SEC is important, and this Vanderbilt team has a little bit more juice than we're used to seeing.
Kevin in the chat says that Ryan Williams paints his nails, but he wears gloves, so I don't get to see him. So that doesn't, that doesn't compute. That doesn't false
register for you.
Yeah, it doesn't register. All right, let's get to it. By the way, gotta say this. My New York Yankees are going to win this whole thing. They're going to do it. Joe, and you're right there by the city. They're going to do it.
I don't follow enough baseball to have a take on that. I don't. Still find it incredibly random that you're a Yankees fan.
What else is an Italian that doesn't have a Major League Baseball team in the state supposed to be a fan of?
Well, you told me the Astros are close.
They are, but I didn't. I mean, they cheat. You know what I mean?
But they didn't start cheating until recently. They also stunk for a long time. I guess it makes sense.
You're not here to listen to Major League Baseball talk or NFL or dudes that paint their nails. You're here to listen to college football. Let's get right into it. Joe, let's do this, man. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. And then when we come back, we're going to break this down. I just want to mention, go over to betonline.ag. They're doing a $200,000 Megatron giveaway. If you pick 5 games per week and are right, you will be in that contest to win that $200,000. BetOnline.ag, where the action starts. Joe, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back and give our power rankings next. Stay with us, guys. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. All right. Let's get this thing rolling, Joe. So week 6, we got a lot of shuffling on our board. A lot of the same teams, but there's a lot of shuffling going on in our power rankings. Mr. Joseph, you're 1 through 10. How do you see college football right now in the top 10 programs?
You may notice Alabama up to number 1. I'm all in. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Texas. Number 3, Tennessee. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, Georgia. Number 6, Miami. Number 7, Penn State. Number 8, Oregon. Number 9, Mizzou. And number 10, sadly, I have Clemson.
So I'm going to start off with this because I'm just going to.
Wait, let's see yours. Yeah, let's see yours first.
Mine off because I got a bone to pick with you. But right, number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Texas. Number 4, Georgia. Number 5, Tennessee. Number 6, Miami. Number 7, Oregon. Number 8, Clemson. Number 9, Missouri. And number 10, the USC Trojans. Joe, let me start off with this. You got all over me last week about the Missouri Tigers. Now, here's the interesting thing and why I'm going to completely just ruin what I'm about to tell you or say to you, because I'm going to pick Texas A&M to beat Mizzou this week.
Okay.
But you got on me last week about Mizzou being in my top 10 power rankings.
Well, okay, we're in a situation now, though. One important thing happened last week. Ole Miss lost. Ole Miss completely removed themselves from the radar. I didn't have a lot to really choose from. Also, first of all, when I build my power ranking, I start from scratch. Like, I try not to build off of what I had the previous week. I try to just completely remove where I was. I try to completely start my footing at a completely new spot, and I start from 1, and I work my way down on who I think has been the most impressive to this point. Now, Mizzou does have some question marks, and we're going to get to talking about that with game picks. But who else am I supposed to put there? We've gotten this point now in October. I would argue that I think 8 through 17, who the F knows? Like, in all seriousness, I know that's not a great answer, but there could be any arrangement of teams that could go in those final 2 spots in the top 10, maybe even the final 3 spots, because so much is about to change and so much is about to happen in the upcoming month of college football that's going to drastically change things.
Thought is exactly what you would say. So you fed right into what I was going to really get at with you. So we probably shouldn't have expanded the playoff.
What? What does that have to do with anything?
Because look at the situation that we have right now. Joe, teams, I would say 7, maybe 8 through 12, 8 through 15. There's a massive gap. You're going to tell me that there's not a massive gap between State, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee to the rest of the field?
First of all, I don't think there's a massive gap. And second of all, I would argue that if anything, this is proof that the playoff was worth expanding because we can talk about so many different teams after 6 weeks that have an opportunity to make it into the playoff. It's a competitive open field. Yes, it should absolutely be said. There shouldn't be any Big 12 teams, and there should be a maximum of 2 ACC teams in this conversation.
There should be no G5 teams.
The SEC and the Big 10 this year are insanely talented. Like, this is the deepest that both of these conferences have ever been, Blake.
No, not the deepest that they've ever been. I would say the early 2010s, no way. The early 2010s was the deepest that the SEC ever had because you had 5 different SEC teams win national championships in that run. No way, no how.
Well, I'm talking about in an individual year where you can go as deep as 9, maybe even 10.
That's also what she said.
You could go that far down in the SEC rankings, and that many teams could potentially be rankable. I mean, if South Carolina wins this week, they could be a ranked team at the end of the week.
Here's the thing about that. Ole Miss is still in that picture, ironically, even in a loss. So, look, here's what I'm going to say about Missouri. Let's get back to Missouri here. Okay. Joe, if they win this week, they'll be one of the only teams in the country that have 2 ranked wins on the season because A&M is ranked. So I just want to throw it out there that they beat Boston College while ranked. They beat Texas A&M while they'll technically be ranked. So I'm just saying there might not be playing the top premier guys at the top, but this is the second time that they've played maybe a tier, maybe just a little bit below their talent, and that they have won. So, look, I'm going to keep Missouri at 9 because I can be wrong. My pick against them and taking A&M later in the show has nothing to do with any of that. But I just had to pick on you since you got on me about Mizzou last week. So,
the only thing to your point about them, I don't know if I would count if you beat a team and then the following weeks they're not ranked anymore. That doesn't really count as a ranked win.
I don't think that that's fair because it's still a ranked on ranked opponent. You can't do that to teams. For
Florida State's a ranked win for Georgia Tech.
Well, yeah, it is. It is, but but that's not the extreme of what we're talking about here. That's one team. Okay, one team in a very bad situation. When I'm looking at Missouri, that's not going on with them. I mean, Joe, A&M is a touchdown away from beating Notre Dame early in the season. Like we can't do that now. Okay, so there's a reason why A&M is up there. It's not brand recognition. If it was brand recognition, they'd be in the top 17.
Okay.
So anyway, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Who in my top 10? I'll put it back up. Who in my top 10 did you not like and where they're at?
I feel like actually, the first one I got to call out here. I don't think USC is a top 10 team at the current moment until I see more from them.
Well, remember their power ranking. It's power ranking.
I know. I thought that they slopped around with Wisconsin and then they separated late just because they were more athletic than them. But at home, you would really hope and think that they would have control and command of that game for the entirety of it. I'm just not a fan of the way they played against Wisconsin. The loss to Michigan kind of ruins it a little bit for me. If we're going to go with the Big Ten team, the credit does need to be given to Penn State. For some reason, Penn State fans think I hate you guys. I don't hate you guys. I'm supportive of Penn State when they're good and they're competitive. I just think at times they've been a little bit overhyped. So far, they have been playing to expectation, and their defense played great against Illinois, and their offense has been playing pretty strong. If they continue to build and get better every single week, they could finish in that 8 spot somewhere in there and kind of firmly grasp onto that.
Look, fair criticism. I can't really throw that out. And Penn State is undefeated, and USC is not. The reason that I went USC above Penn State, I'll give you my reasoning, whether right, wrong, or indifferent. Joe, I'm not. Look, they have been a second half team in every single game that they've played, right? Like LSU, or Power 4, I should say. LSU, Michigan, Wisconsin, right? They had to storm back in the second half to win. They have not had the ability to start fast, which is not cumbersome, of Lincoln Riley teams. Think about this, though. Joe, did you know that they were top 25 in time of possession?
I did not know that.
So they've done a complete 180 to some extent in reference to what their schematical things and they're doing offensively. I like Penn State's win last week. I think they ran the ball effectively. I thought they looked good against Illinois. Had a slip up against Bowling Green. The thing with me with USC is that if we're on a neutral field with them in Penn State, I don't know if I can take Penn State right now. Like I would slightly favor USC on a neutral field for one reason. I don't know that the best team that they saw was Illinois, and the receivers couldn't separate. And I thought Allard had issues when there wasn't much separation. Go back and look at that game, man.
Well, wait, I disagree with that, but like Illinois has one of the better secondaries in the country.
Well, here's the thing, though, man. I get the Wisconsin first half for that secondary at USC. Joe, they allowed 17 passing yards in the second half. They are the number one. PFF put this out today because of the LSU.
Wisconsin doesn't have any receivers, though.
Okay, fair. But I mean, you can't. LSU does.
Well, they gave up big gains to.
I get it. I'm with you. I understand. Both of Penn State and USC to me have flaws. I'm just going to lean with them at the current moment. I thought you were going to say Michigan over them because they won, but Michigan can't throw a forward pass.
I don't think either. Well, that's my whole point is I don't think either of them belong on there, and Michigan should deservedly be ahead of USC because they have the win against them head-to-head.
Fair. Joe, look, both of us have Alabama at number one, obviously coming off of a big win last week against Georgia.
Yeah.
Look, I'll give you the floor first on this because you asked me this, and I kind of gave you a ho-hum response. You asked Pate this, and look, he'll tell you this. You got a ho-hum response, and I got to give you credit here. You're like, look, man, I don't think you understand the magnitude of when they beat them with the board, what it's going to be. Both of us have Alabama at number one in our power rankings. I'll give you the floor, my good man. Why do you have them there?
So 2 parts here. One, Georgia doesn't deserve to fall very far because they're still a top team in the country. They just lost that football game. They started too slow. They were dealing with a couple of issues. I'm sure that we're going to talk about them in a second. But Alabama's right now has the best resume out of any team and then the best on-field performances that we've seen every single week. They had an iffy game against South Florida because they were banged up and dealing with injuries. That was the biggest thing that pissed me off is that there were some real mouth breathers in the media out there that were doing the whole, oh, what do we make of Alabama? They didn't look good. But they clearly didn't watch the game, nor did they pay attention to any of the things coming into that game to know that they were out multiple offensive linemen, going up against a very mobile, scrambling quarterback, all the things. Lack of ball knowledge seeped into these thoughts on Alabama. I knew at that moment that they were still good enough to beat Georgia. You have the Heisman favorite at the current moment. You've got a very explosive receiving core, and your defense is getting better and better every single week, despite being young at certain positions. I think their secondary is tremendous. Right now, Blake, for me, outside of this
secondary is tremendous.
Yes, I'm going to keep pushing that narrative, man. I get that they've got two young cats out there, but they both had picks. They both had huge plays.
I get that. They also had 312 yards put on them in a second half.
They're going up against a first-round pick and Carson Beck. Like, we got to you can give him a little bit of grace here.
I can give him
It's
grace.
Not just the two of them.
You're saying the best in the country when they had a half or someone.
No, I didn't just say that they were the best in the country. I just thought I just said that they've got a very good secondary that's better than people thought that they were.
Okay.
Is what I was trying to say.
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
I missed what you said.
My final point with Alabama, though, Blake, everything is there for them. They feel like that because we haven't had enough teams that have been tested yet, they have shown up and shown us their true selves. They play to this potential. They will continue to be the number one team in the country.
So, look, I talked about this when they did beat South Florida, and we talked about them playing Wisconsin. Listen, from the fourth quarter of the South Florida game on, where they went 28 unanswered points,
yeah.
Joe, think about it like this. Not only did they come off that fourth quarter in doing that, they did that in the first half to Georgia. So what did we see in context here? We saw a team that went out there and scored like unanswered 56 points. That is insane that you gave up zero. Joe, if I would have told you that the last 2 quarters against South Florida and the first 2 quarters against Georgia, Bama would score 56 points. You'd be like, okay, well, maybe they must have got – damn, they must have put up 56 points in the second half against USF. They didn't do that to Georgia. Maybe they got 14 points. Maybe. They have shown spurts of being one of the top elite offenses in the country.
Yeah.
Here will be my entire argument until someone finds a way to stop him with the way that this man is throwing the football. Jalen Milroe. That is my argument. That's my argument. I haven't said this all week. I want to end it with this. Do I think Ryan Williams is fantastic? Yes, I actually do. He's not the straw that stirs that drink, brother. Like, right. Jalen Milroe is the reason they are looking the way that they are looking at the current moment.
Right. Ryan Williams is special, but to that point, and I don't think anyone's going to really disagree with that take.
Been all over Ryan Williams.
Well, but it's the story. It's the young kid who's too young to be in college football, and he's a top 10 receiver already in the sport.
Speedy passing ratio the last 8 games is 18-1.
He's not making a lot of mistakes, and he's also his running ability has taken a step further. I think a lot of people are promoting his passing ability, but like him as a runner, I think it has become extremely dangerous. He's just the most well-rounded player in the country right now. He's gonna be potentially a first-round pick this year, from what I've heard, and he should win the Heisman. You have the best player, you have the best team. Everything's going in the direction.
It's too early.
I understand that, but here's a good counterpoint. Jaden Daniels, didn't we feel like we knew by week 6 that this is about to be a special season? That's
a little bit different. I'm gonna throw a wild card at you, and you're gonna really want to punch me in the face.
Oh no.
The only reason I would say hold off on that is because Quinn Ewers also has to face Georgia. And then he's got next week when he's coming back against.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that logic.
I know, but I think it's way too early because you know what's going to happen, though, Joe. If that kid comes back and then he beats those teams the way that we think that they might do, I'm just going to hold off on that. All right, what team do you want to get to here next on our power rankings?
You and I, we already kind of talked about Georgia a little bit. We flip back to.
We talked about Georgia a lot this week. We can pass on that.
Yeah. I want to talk about Ohio State. I think that you and I are in a very different range on Ohio State. I've said this.
Yeah, we both have them at 2.
Did I keep them at 2? Sorry, we're both clicking it at the same time. No, I have them at 4. I have them at 4. I just want to bring this up with them. I'm not doubting them. Like, I really think after Oregon, we're going to be having a much different conversation. And then my whole argument's going to be is, I know that we're not doing this based off of resume, but if they beat Oregon and they look really strong in doing so, that to me is more impressive than Texas beating Michigan. So I'm going to probably end up moving up Ohio State. All I'm saying to this point, I've seen like 60% capacity of what they are. Like we saw them, Devin Brown played a good chunk of the last game because Will Howard had that brief injury for a period of time and went out. Like, this isn't the full version of Ohio State yet. We have not even been close to exposed to it. We have no idea. It's kind of like last year with Michigan, where we really didn't know what Michigan was until they played Ohio State. Like, it was up until that point that we knew what they were. Even the Penn State game was not a full indication because they beat Ohio State and then their full playoff mode was unleashed. So, I don't know. I can't get to putting them at 2. It's less of a disagreement with you, but more of me just making a statement.
Then they're going to go out there this weekend and blow out Iowa. You know, you get what I'm saying? Like, look.
Yeah, but is that more impressive than what Texas has done to this point and what Tennessee has done to this point?
Here's my thing with Texas, and now I'm going to really contradict myself here. I don't know what how do I want to say this? The Michigan win looks like dog shit to me. I'm going to be real with you. Because as soon as they played that game, they changed quarterbacks and were a completely different team and completely different identity.
Yes.
I got to be honest with you. They couldn't run the ball better than USC did. Let me say that again. We talk in praise about that offensive line, do we not?
Mm-hmm.
USC went up in that building and smacked some asses around now. Okay?
But Michigan's less of a dead body than we thought that they were. Like, we thought after the Texas game that they were going to get worse and worse, but the USC win proves that they're capable.
But here's what I know, though. USC lined up and bought that ass in the second half. There's a reason that Woody Marks had 100 yards rushing. There's a reason he had a touchdown. Because, Joe, they were able to line up and bop them in the mouth. So the bottom line for me, though, is, and by the way, their quarterback, Miller Moss, went, what was it, Joe, what did we say? Was it 15 of 18 in the second half for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns? I get what you're saying, and I know that was look, obviously USC lost. But my point I think that there are also things that you have to look at Texas and say, look, I know that USC can line up and run the football on them, but your inability to do that at the current moment also wasn't there. It's not my fault. I'm not going to take away from you beating their ass, but I'm also going to take away that you faced a walk-on that got benched the next week because he stunk. And their full identity changed. I need to see a little bit more for Texas. I'm going to get that in 2 weeks or on October the 12th when they got to face a really good defense in Oklahoma. Joe, there's a strong possibility that they keep 5, maybe 6 in the box and make Quinn Ewers beat them coming back off of injury, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, a whole nother thing is what happens if Quinn goes down again? Because, Joe, these injuries keep compiling themselves at this point. When you have injury after injury after injury, they keep compiling. So I understand what you're saying about Texas. I don't disagree. It's why I got them at 3. But the bottom line for me is, do I have them at 3 or 4? Whichever one. The bottom line comes for me is everybody wants to give them. I have them at 3. Okay, that's what I thought. The bottom line for me is when it comes down to it, I saw another team that's in these power rankings be able to line up against Michigan and punch them in the mouth when you couldn't. So when you do have Georgia, when you do have a stout defense against Oklahoma, what if that gets just as worse? And then those teams, when you played them, have more of an ability to score than what Michigan did when you played them. Does anything that I think I made sense there, but
somewhat.
I'm not ready. I still think let's go to Council Bluffs, Ohio today, right now. And you tell me that Ohio State and Texas are playing on the neutral field with Quinn Ewers coming off of an injury, and we don't know of their ability to run. Who would you take today?
Between Ohio State and Texas?
Yeah, Ohio State and Texas. Who would you take?
God, man, I don't know if I can answer that question if I'm being completely honest.
No, you know good and God darn well.
I honestly don't think I can answer that question because what I just said, we've only seen 60-70% of Ohio State, and I feel like I know what Texas is.
Okay, well, here's the thing. If we got to split hairs at that, it is what it is. All right, who else on this team? Miami did not move for us. That was the thing that go ahead.
I was going to say I almost dropped them after the game, but I have to recognize that it's the cliche that I repeat constantly on the show, which is good teams find ways to win when they're playing bad. They still found a way to win that football game despite multiple turnovers, being down for a multi-score deficit, all of those things. They were able to get back into it and win. So I can't hold that against them. You know, I kind of just feel like they're pretty firmly placed where they are until they get a big win, which isn't going to happen until they play Clemson. They played Louisville, but I don't think Louisville is a very tough opponent.
Outside of Penn State and Oregon, I mean, Joe, you're splitting hairs between them and Oregon. I mean, they're one of the only remaining undefeated teams that have a chance to be here. Right. I mean, we dropped Oregon a little bit after they had a really bad game against Boise State and had to kick a field goal to walk it off. I mean, what's worse, an ACC opponent, Virginia Tech, who, by the way, still has a lot of really good talent? I mean, come on. And my question is going to be, is Oregon really been tested? Tell the truth, no. They really hadn't. I know
they've probably been tested the least of some of these teams that we're talking about right now.
Right. They went up against Ashton Jeanty, who might be the best back in the country. I get that, but you still got pushed around. So this is my whole point that I alluded to earlier to round this segment out. Joe, that's why I think that, like, once you get past 5, 6, the drop-off is there. Because, like, think about this.
Wait. I hate when you're doing this. There's no drop-off. There's no drop-off. There is no drop-off. These teams are all good.
All right.
There's no answer on who the best on who's going to win the national title right now.
Can I give you a scenario right quick?
Mm-hmm.
Georgia would face Oregon today.
I don't think that's like a lock of an assumed victory.
Yes,
I think that Georgia beats them, but I'm like stunned by this. I don't know how you can look at what we've seen so far and think that there's this massive drop off between these teams.
Oh, there is. Because
this is the most competitive, parity-filled year that we've ever had.
You mean to tell me that Boise State can line up and push Oregon?
No. Don't use Boise State as an example. That is not a good example. We're talking. It's not a good example because they're not a part of the conversation that we're having right now. They get a bid, but they don't really deserve to have a bid.
No. You misheard what I just said.
What'd you say?
You mean to tell me that Boise State can push around Oregon up front and Georgia can't? Like, are we really trying to split the hairs that Georgia's loss is by 7 to Alabama on the road? Okay, they've beaten the dog shit out of your team that's at Clemson.
It was
Joe,
Blake.
Tell me that there's not a massive drop-off when the number 4 or 5 team on our poll literally beat the dog shit out of number 9. How can you tell me that?
Because, Blake, that was – okay, but the problem is that multiple of these games that you're bringing up were in the first 2 weeks of the season. So much changes in that period of time. Perfect example of what changes is that Georgia's banged up right now, and they've got multiple injuries that's holding them back.
They had their number 1 running back that was out because of a DUI. There were still situations.
Oh my God!
Was there not? Was he not?
I really cannot get behind you saying that you think that this is not one of the most balanced years.
Listen to me and listen to me now. I've said it today and I'll continue to say it. When we get in the playoffs and these teams at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 start getting their asses whopped,
I don't think that. I think you're going to be stunned by how close some of these games are, man.
Watch.
Dude, I just don't know. I just don't know how you can sit here and say. I just don't know how you can sit here and say that there is a clear separation between them.
The clear separation happens when Georgia beats the dog shit out of your number 9. If you're going to go from weeks 1 to 6, which is what you started off the segment by saying. You started off the segment by saying, I can only go what I'm based off of. That's why I have Ohio State at 4. Now you're turning back and saying, well, Blake, you can't use why can't I use week 1? Why can't I?
You can use week 1. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm just trying to point out here is that when you start off the season and there's a number of teams, like a team like Oregon that has a completely new offense, a new quarterback, and also I disagree that they got pushed around. Ashton Jeanty cooked them because he's an incredibly gifted running back. That Oregon was not getting pushed around by Boise State.
Offensive linemen have no respect for offensive line play. 0.
That's not true. That's not true at all. I
have no respect for offensive line play. It's seeping through your pores. Ulta just called. What's that? Oh, it's seeping through your pores.
Blake, I'm gonna keep coming back to this though. I absolutely completely hate that you don't like this playoff field.
What else is new? You hate me.
This is the most.
I thought we were best friends, and look, you're saying you hate me.
I said I hate your take. All right, let's get the game picks.
Yeah, because we got a lot we still got to get to here. All right.
Yeah.
Joe, we start off our game picks here. Look at there, as you mentioned earlier in the show. Yes. You have caught up with me. Both of us are 34-16 on the season. But let's start off with this week. Ole Miss versus South Carolina. Both of us are expecting the Ole Miss Rebels to bounce back here, Joe.
Yes. I brought this up when we did the preview. I really do believe that Lane Kiffin is the type of coach that is going to find ways to rally his team when their back's against the wall. They put bad performance, going to need to step up big time. He's going to put a ton more of attention to detail into the week of practice. And I also, I went back and watched the L22, that Ole Miss game, and I think they really, really, really completely got away from and overthought their game plan going against Kentucky. They threw the ball in the first 40 plays like 90% of the time.
Right.
And it was all it was probably one of the stupidest ways that an offense got themselves beat. Kentucky's defense is talented, but all they literally did is they just sat back in zone and they rushed 4 and 5 the entire game. There was nowhere for Jackson Dart to go with the football. He was completely hung out to dry. I think that they're going to try and run the ball. I think they're going to have a completely different approach. And I also think with the defensive line talent that Ole Miss has going up against what's been a weak O-line for South Carolina, statistically, they're one of the worst in the country. They're going to be able to get home. They're going to win a close game.
I don't want to interrupt this. However, breaking 2025 quarterback Deuce Knight has flipped from Notre Dame to Auburn.
I knew that was going to happen. I heard that was going to happen earlier today.
We'll get to that in just a moment. I just wanted to let you know. All right. I am also very quickly. I'm also going with Ole Miss here. However, I am terrified for them in this game. I still don't think people realize how physical that South Carolina game is. Give me Ole Miss to win. If I did pick this game like point spread, give me South Carolina to cover at that 9 or 8.5 on BetOnline. Texas A&M versus Missouri. I'm going with A&M. You're going with Mizzou.
Big separation point for me in this game. I think that with how good Missouri's defensive line and just defense in general has been, they statistically have been one of the best in the country. They've had a couple tests, not like real hard tests, but like BC, Vandy. They've got a couple opportunities to be challenged, and their defense has still played really good. I think that they're going to slow down Marcel Reed and Le'Veon Moss. I think they're going to bottle up that rushing attack. They're going to be able to win this football game. Another game that I think is going to be super freaking close. But I got to go with Missouri. I'm riding the last little drop of preseason hype that I had for them that I think is going to come to fruition in this game.
I think they're going to get out physical when it's all said and done. I really do. Joe, this is what I think about this A&M team, man. Look, I know that they had a blunder against Bowling Green. Look what they did to Taylon Green last week in Jackson.
Well, wait.
Hold on. You cannot tell me that Brady Cook, Joe, they've been running the football with him.
Yes.
That's the majority of their offense, unless they're going to change something and open it wide open.
But it's not like Taylon Green was completing 80-70% of his passes and suddenly Texas A&M forced him to have a bad game. He's been playing bad up until this point.
Yeah, but their passing game hasn't been,
Okay. I see what you're saying. No, I think this is a coin flip. I really do think this game is a coin flip.
Too.
Did you know, by the way, that this was a really funny story today. Marcel Reed's
sisters at Mizzou.
Like one of the recruiting coordinators or something like that. And so Eli Drinkwitz is not allowing her to attend practice for the rest of the week after that he found this out. I think that's hilarious. I love that.
I also saw that he said that he's fully expecting him to start over Connor Wegman, which I think is the bigger thing here, man. Yeah. I really do. Mm-hmm. All right. Oregon, Michigan State, both of us going with the Ducks here, and Ohio State and Iowa, we're both going with Ohio State here, Joe.
Yeah, not much of a debate in these games. They were when we titled it, this team's going to get blown out. The Michigan State game, wouldn't be shocked if that ends up being close if Oregon plays a little sloppy and a little slow to get out of the gate. But both these teams, this is the warm-up game before the big challenge next week. I think they're going to be locked in. I think they're both going to win pretty easily.
I also agree with everything you just said there. Miami versus Cal. We're both picking Miami, but man, I'm just going to tell you, I don't like them traveling like that neither.
One of my betting picks this week that I gave on VSiN, I really think that Cal is going to cover 10.5. I think that they cover. I think this game is going to be really close. Miami is going to be one of those teams that keeps things close with teams that they're not supposed to, and they're going to be total heart attack team. But luck is on their side, so I think that they win no matter what.
Joe, these picks feel too easy, man, and this sport does not let you do this. Right. There's going to be an upset in here. I don't know who it is. Maybe, and we'll probably have some of these games wrong. One of these teams that we have in here is going to get beat that has no business getting beat. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know who it is, but it's going to happen. But I agree with you on Miami. Tennessee versus Arkansas, both of us going with the Vols.
I know that you want to give. I think I spelled Tennessee wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
I know that you were trying to give Arkansas a little bit of life. I found it very funny in the comments of that preview. There were Arkansas fans that even went out of their way to say, "Please stop talking about us. We stink." And I thought that was very funny in the grand scheme of things for how much we yelled at each other last night when we taped that. But to just come back down to this, I gotta stick with Tennessee. I think that they've got so much momentum right now. I think they're going to win this by 10 plus points.
I agree with you. And because how the comments went off the way that they did, Joe, I'm just going to tell you, Tennessee fans understand where I was coming from. That's why they were in the chat saying what they were saying.
Yeah, you're coming. You love to come for a good argument. That's
no. I think Tennessee fans need to see, like they did with Hendon Hooker.
Yeah,
I think the holdup for everybody from a Vol fan perspective is, have we really played anybody that can test us at all? Right? Like, I mean, look, our Oklahoma really couldn't. NC State really couldn't. And I think that's why, Joe, that they're just like, hold up. Let's make sure that we can go in Arkansas. Joe, I'm going to tell you this. Arkansas is unloading the clip this week. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm telling you from people I've talked to, they are unloading the clip. And
that's fair.
Here comes Bobby Petrino. Like, you're going to see some shit that you're like, why in the hell are they doing this? I'm just listen to your boy on this one. I'm not guessing. All right, let's get to some of the rest of these. Georgia at Auburn. Even though Auburn just got a big time flip, doesn't matter. They're still going to lose.
Yeah. There's no real analysis needed. Georgia's the much better football team. Auburn turns the ball over a shit ton. Bingo, bongo, give me Georgia.
Joe, I think this is going to get ugly. I think it's going to get really ugly.
They're going to win. They're going to win by 60 points.
Give me Georgia to win. And if I were going to do this, give me Georgia to cover. All right. Rutgers and Nebraska, both of us going with the Pisons.
Rutgers. I wanted you to pick Nebraska, damn it, so that I got to have something to be mad at you about. What the hell? Don't get on the Rutgers train all of a sudden, Blake. This is some BS. I've been on them since last year, since week 1 of last year. Coach Schiano, damn it.
Where are you from?
I'm from the Jers. I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, so you're a homer.
No. Rutgers has been terrible my entire lifetime. Lifetime.
And they're really tough.
Yeah.
And I think the blueprint's out on Raiola at the current moment. And I think that Rutgers can execute it.
I don't totally agree with that part. I think that Raiola could win in this football game and will them back if it gets to a certain point. But what has proven for Rutgers is the toughness, the run game, just grinding things out, all of those things.
They play on me.
Not what I said. They play true to Big Ten football. They've got an experienced big offensive line. They're downhill. I think that they're going to play time of possession battle here and they're going to win it. Manungai all the way, 100 yards.
Serious question because of their schedule. Is Rutgers a playoff contender?
Dude, they dead ass might be. Like, we seriously, in all seriousness, if they beat Nebraska this week, we're going to have to start talking about them because they don't play Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State. If they beat Nebraska, they're going 10-2.
There's a strong possibility that they're going to sneak up on some people the next couple of weeks if they take care of business this week. I think they do.
There's no sneaking up on people. They're going to be favored after that point.
National fans are not talking about Rutgers like that.
I see what you mean. They're going to just pop out on people.
Shit! Rutgers is 6-0. What the hell?
Yeah.
All right. Georgia Tech and Duke, both of us going with the Yellow Jackets here, Joe. Why? And Duke is also undefeated.
Yeah, Duke's kind of an arbitrary undefeated. You know,
they just keep finding ways to win. There's something to be said about that.
Yeah, but like they haven't really played many tough opponents. You know, they beat up on a UNC.
Duke. Ride that Blue Devil wave, baby.
Look, credit to Manny Diaz. I think it's very commendable, and they're playing true to what we would expect. They're running the football really well, and their defense has been phenomenal. But this is probably a little bit of a reality check going against a more established team.
Very true. Very, very, very true. UCF going to Florida. I knew the game, but I thought that was the last one that we had here. Both of us going with the Gators. Brother, I don't trust this one at all.
I disagree. I think that we'll talk about a big separation point. Here's what I'll agree with what you were saying earlier. The Big 12, outside of two teams, Kansas State and Utah, that are like at least going to be able to be competitive in if they play teams from other conferences, it's right now it's a glorified G5 conference. Like it is, they are not physical enough up front on both lines of scrimmage. They couldn't outmuscle Colorado last week. Like that was where they were supposed to win, was supposed to being more physical up front, and they looked soft. It needs to be said that in a situation like this, even though Florida is collapsing, they're an SEC roster. They're going to win this game.
Dude,
UCF's not good, man.
You said makes 100% logic and is probably factual.
But Billy Napier is going to make me look like a dumbass.
However, I don't trust that man.
Yeah, that's probably true.
If you get a buzz cut and you don't get a line, like you don't get somebody to line you up, I don't trust you. It's like the Matt Campbell hat thing.
Yeah, you find the weirdest things to hate on these guys.
I'm just saying, Billy Napier, brother, here's the truth, too. Mississippi State's not an SEC roster right now after what's happened to them. And, Joe, they were going literal blow for blow with Mississippi State 2 weeks ago.
But they still separated from them and beat them up pretty badly.
Separating them. Oh, so they got a late score touchdown. They were literally with, like, I think it was, 2 minutes left? They were down. Mississippi State was down by 7?
The final score of that game was 45-28.
Okay, I thought it was 40.
They beat them. They beat them pretty badly. It was, at halftime, it was 28-14 at half.
Well, here came Mississippi State, came all the way back. All right. Just saying. All right. Joe, before we get out of here, you want to get to Vandy and Alabama?
Let's do it.
Joe, for the first time on the show, outside of something crazy, we have not talked about the Vanderbilt Commodores on this show. So welcome, Vanderbilt Commodores, to Ruffino and Joe show. Joe, Bama coming off a massive win. Both of us put them number one in our power rankings this week. Highly impressive. Potentially the Heisman Trophy winner and Jalen Milroe. Big-time statement early in the season. They look really good offensively under Kalen DeBoer. Defensively made a lot of really good plays. I know that there's a strong, very, very strong likelihood that they're going to beat Vanderbilt. However, I just want to come out and say I'm proud of the way to see a team like Vanderbilt under Clark Lee playing the way that they're playing. So, look, they're a scrappy team. And I don't think Alabama's got really anything to worry about here. However, you can't mess around with scrappy teams either. You got to go in there and take care of business.
Right. Big thing for me with this game. I actually think that the line on BetOnline is 22.5. It's somewhere in that range. I actually think that there's a chance that Vanderbilt, and a strong chance that Vanderbilt covers. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, I'm going to get to that in a second. A lot of times, a team like Alabama get a big emotional win. A statement win that is building your program, first-year head coach, all of those things that is just so momentous for everything that you're going to accomplish this year. More often than not, a lot of coaches will step up in that next game. A lot of teams in the next game will play a little bit flatter than expected. They're not going to come out and completely smoke Vanderbilt. There are very, very few teams, even the greatest coaches in the history of college football, that will come out after a game like the one that they had against Georgia, playing against a walkover opponent, and not completely overlook them. So when I say that Vanderbilt covers, maybe they lose by only 17 points. And what I'm bringing this up for is that I don't want to hear anyone from the national perspective and other fan bases that if Alabama only beats Vanderbilt by 17 points or 20 points or something like that, or 14 points, I don't want to hear anybody trying to use that as a reason for why Alabama it was just really lucky in the game that they had against Georgia. I don't want to hear that. There are going to be people who come out of the woodwork and that use it like they do every single week to disqualify Alabama in this situation. So I'm just bringing this up.
Happening.
Yeah, I'm just bringing this up to say that what happens on Saturday is not indicative or reflective of how good Alabama is. If they kick the shit out of them, great. If this game is close, don't overreact like we did against South Florida.
When you come off of big emotional wins, historically in sports in general, even with Saban at times in his career, there is a propensity to let off of the gas a little bit. Now, you're coming off on an emotional win, but Joe, you're coming off a very physical win. I mean, that was a tough team that you played and you beat. I just don't like the thing that I've thought about when we were going to talk about this game this week. The thing I keep coming back to that DeBoer has had some issues with. Stay with me. When Washington would come off those big Oregon wins like they did last year, then we had a 24-21 win against Washington State, right? Like, I mean,
right.
There have been issues like that. Now, you could say, well, Blake, that was Cam Ward. That was where you were in a situation where that's a rivalry game. Very true. Okay, but there have just been times where they've taken a little bit step back. Now, I don't know, Joe, if that happens because I think that they can – I think the messaging this week is go take care of business. I don't know if this is true or not. It's probably not true, but there are like rat traps placed all over the locker room this week or whatever.
Yeah, they've been talking about that.
Okay, so how clever. That's a coach getting to his team. And I think that when you're already looking – like, Joe, that they won on a Saturday – we were seeing tweets come out on Sunday of mouse traps being placed, and Kalen DeBoer basically sending to his team, let's move on. Let's get ready for this week. Look, man, here's the truth. Against any scrappy team, take the logo off the side of their helmet. You just can't play around with them. And look, Joe, I'm going to be real with you. I'm interested to see how a guy that can move a little bit in Pavia, I'm really interested to see how Bama looks in that. You know, like, hey,
right.
You went up against Carson Beck, who's going to sit in the pocket and deliver the football to X, Y, and Z receiver. But Pavia is not going to do that. Look, like there's a really strong chance that he's going to run and try to get first downs. And I don't want Bama fans or national media, to your credit here, of saying this, don't get freaked out by that. Running quarterbacks will vastly reduce how close that game is because they can continue to get first downs. So I'm really interested, very, very much interested to see how this game plays out with Bama and Vandy.
So Pavia, to elaborate on what we're talking about here, is probably the biggest catalyst for why I'm talking about how Vanderbilt could cover and make this game a little bit closer than everybody would anticipate. And anyone who doesn't know anything about Vanderbilt and doesn't know who he is super mobile, and he is a headache, a huge headache for some of the best defenses in the country. And we saw that against Missouri. He kept them in the game. He kept finding ways to extend drives and to keep them in the game. And this is right now, actually, to this point, might be a weakness for Alabama, that they let Byron Brown of UCF run on him. He had a successful game, and that was why it was close for how far into the game it was because they couldn't corral him until the fourth quarter. So can you step in and realize, hey, we didn't play as good as we needed to against Byron Brown. We're getting a chance to be tested again by another mobile quarterback. We're not going to let him break contain. We're not going to let him step up in the pocket and scramble. We're going to spy him. We're going to go through the process so that later on in the season that we're ready for those things. I know that a lot of people roll their eyes at that concept of, oh, this is an SEC opponent. Why the hell would you be treating it like a scrimmage? You kind of have to. You know, you kind of need to take away these opportunities to learn, to build, to get better, and a good head coach is going to use that.
I want to really see them establish the running game.
That
Bama
too?
Fans,
yeah.
Bama fans are mad at me, but Joe, outside of that long run that they had by a running back last week, let's just call it what it is. I understand it's Georgia. Spare me, okay? Get up there and line up and run the football too. You know, like don't let Jalen Milroe be the only reason that you can run the football and you'll be fine. But I got to be real with you, man. I got Bama. I would take Bama to cover. I don't think that they're going to have a lapse in judgment. I don't. The reason why is because I do think Jalen Milroe's leadership and decision making is vastly improved. You know, we talked about Jalen Milroe early in the show, and you brought up really good points about, look, man, he's definitely better as a passer. He's definitely much better as a thrower. Joe, none of that is bigger to me than the decision making that he's making on the football field. Okay, like that is astronomically the biggest thing that he has improved. He's comfortable. He knows what he needs to do. DeBoer has orchestrated things like, hey, if this and this isn't here, check down, run. He's giving him 4 options. He's giving him 2, and then he's giving him a check down. And if you don't like any 3 of them, make your processes quick. You're too good not to get outside that pocket and run. That is how Joe, it's what Mike Denbrock did last year with Jaden. I'm going to get a check down. I'm going to get Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors out there. Run what you got to run. Jaden, they're not there. Go. You're too good to be sitting around here trying to make things happen. That's why I think that I think, look, man, we see this with Heisman contending type quarterbacks. They don't really take games off, Joe. You know what I mean? Like, they normally go out there and bust the shit out of people. That's the reason I have a lot of confidence in that kid. It's why I think they're going to cover. They're going to win big here. And look, we got to take them very seriously. So I hate when I come out here and say, oh, Vandy's going to get blown out. I just like the way that I've seen Jalen Milroe play.
Yeah.
All
Continue
right,
to be impressed by him.
Last thing here. Deuce Knight has flipped his commitment from Notre Dame to Auburn. Your thoughts?
I knew that this was coming. Today, somebody texted me and I found out that this was going to happen. I was kind of just waiting for it. The Hayes Fawcett graphic has been ready for some time now, apparently. I don't know what the timeline is, but it was ready to go. Not shocked. Deuce, I don't really kind of get it after you've seen what Hugh Freeze has been saying and he's been talking about his players. You better hope that he doesn't try to blame you for any issues that they're having offensively. But separate from that, you're going to be playing in an offense that suits your skill set. Malik Willis was extremely successful, so much so that he's gotten and turned into a premier backup in the NFL. He played great for the Packers. He was getting highly talked about as a potential first-round pick. Similar traits, similar skill set. Deuce Knight is going to be super productive on the team. And then the flip side of this for Marcus Freeman, man, go find a quarterback. There's potential options that could not be much of a drop-off that are going to be other top 4-star guys. But this is a bit problematic that this is how this year is going, that the guy who was supposed to be the centerpiece of the class is decommitting. And he was the guy who was going out there and recruiting extra guys.
And you knew
it.
Here, I'm going to continue to tell you this. I don't give a shit what you listen. I'm going to continue to tell you. You better get your collective ready to roll, brother. You think this is a game?
It has nothing to do with the collective. It has everything
Auburn
to do.
came in there and dropped their nuts. They are not.
They're not. The offer. I don't know with certainty. I don't know with certainty, but the offer is not that much different.
Joe, it is.
I'll find that out right now.
Please do, and I guarantee you, any Notre Dame side of things that you're going to hear is false. Their collective is kicking your ass. And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. I got to go. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Right.
Not tomorrow.
Sunday.
We'll see you Sunday. Peace.